So here I am, you know, with this massive desire to go start my own thing. And I'm blaming God. I'm like, well, God, you're the problem. You're not making these books go big. I have 3 kids, 6, 4, and 2. I got a full-time job. I got health insurance. What am I going to do? Just like step into nothing? And really just becoming a victim. And this is not my own, but I love this definition of victim. It's someone who lies in bed, blame, excuses, and denial. And it's someone who says the world happens to me. I got in touch with a guy whose kids I was their youth pastor. His name's Chet Scott. He now coaches Ohio State Buckeye wrestling team. And he just started calling me out. If he thought you were full of crap, he just cuss you out, right? So he's just a real tough. I mean, he's David Goggins before David Goggins, really. Okay. So the quick story is that I meet John Maxwell. John's became a friend. He's now hired me, him and his team, as a client to do some stuff with their books. But anyway, back in the day, #1 leadership guru in the world, John Maxwell, and I start getting speaking gigs, right? So I get this speaking gig while I'm a pastor, and I get a phone call from Chet at the church office. And he's like, I want you to step outside. So I'm like, all right. So I step outside, I'm on the phone. And he said, I see you on Facebook. You just got back from whatever, traveling and speaking. It's like, yeah. He said, does your senior pastor know? I'm like, yep, I asked him. He's like, is your senior pastor happy with you? I said, oh yeah, he's happy. He said, is your wife happy? Oh yeah, she's happy. And he's like, is God happy? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I think you're full of blank. And he said, I think you are full of blank. And I think you're scared to step out and do what God's telling you to do. And I think you're playing a big game and you're going and speaking everywhere else. You can't take the ring and stay in the Shire.
This is Sparta! Welcome back to Spartan Leadership. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick, and today we have some fun for you. We got a really amazing person who's an author and entrepreneur and faith-based at that. So I'm always excited to talk to people like Kary Oberbrunner. Welcome to Spartan Leadership.
Super glad to be here. I checked out some of your stuff online, and you are doing some very cool things yourself.
Well, thank you. It's just fun to talk to people that have figured out a way to integrate their faith as well as their business, because in this world, especially in America right now, there seems to be so much conflict behind it.
Sure.
But before we get into all of that and how you do that, you know, Alec told me about you overcoming a severe stutter early on in your
Oh
life.
yeah.
And I
Oh
was
yeah.
telling Alec that one of my favorite speakers of all time, and he was
Hmm.
a great leader within the Northwestern system, still struggles with that today, but he turned it into humor on stage. So
Wow.
anytime it would come out, he would make some joke, and sometimes self-deprecating, some
Yeah.
not, but like just would use it as a superpower. And he became one of the best orators I've ever and leaders that I've ever known. So I
Wow.
was curious to hear some about your upbringing and story and how that
Sure.
struggle overcoming that, because I know there can be a lot of insecurity that
Oh
comes from
yeah.
that as well.
Oh yeah. So I grew up in Wisconsin. I think you're familiar with Wisconsin.
Oh
And
yeah, very.
yeah, well, back in the day, if you remember this, anybody who's a Gen Xer would probably remember this. But they had these readers, and I went to the Catholic grade school, and they pass around this little reader, and you're supposed to read, right? And so I don't know, I just always struggled with speaking as a young kid. And so I think it really came down to perfectionism. So that's why my heart goes out to people who struggle with perfectionism, because I can spot it a million miles away. But anyway, here I was trying to read it, and you mess up, and then your parents are awesome, and they try to say, hey man, slow down, think about what you're going to say, right? And they're trying to help, and this is like early 80s, and the worst thing you want to do is think about what you're going to say, because I I probably have OCD tendencies. So, to think about it actually prevents you from getting in flow, which we can talk about some other time, but flow's a optimal state of human performance. I study flow a lot, but really your inner critic shuts down when you're in flow, and that's where your genius comes out. But the point is that I started struggling and it became worse and worse. And so, I remember almost having like panic attacks as a kid because kids laugh at everything. And for me, it was, oh, there's the guy with the girl's name, like today, who even knows what side's up, right? With our world. But back in those days, you did not want to be a guy with a girl's name. So it just spun into things and then it turned into self-hatred. So
Mm.
from stuttering to, biting. So biting was a way that I could essentially control pain. How often, so words were not the way that I could express my feelings because of stuttering. So where do you go with your pain? You either go inside or something. So I went inside with my pain. Saw my first psychologist at the age of 10. My parents just thought, hey, this kid needs to be encouraged. He's a little bit down in the dumps. I remember lying on the intake form. My dad said, have you ever struggled with suicide? I said, what's suicide? I've never heard of that, 10-year-old kid. He's like, well, that's where you want to kill yourself. And I remember lying and saying, oh no, I've never thought of that. But even at the age of 10, I had thought of that. So turned in later in my teen years into full-blown cutting. So this is before the internet. I was not somebody to like talk about my pain or show my scars, but it was a private addiction that I basically Satan had me wound up, like steal, kill, destroy. So my emerging out of that was a big process and journey, but became a pastor and did that for about 12 years and then realized I am way more of an entrepreneur and then jumped in the business world.
Yeah, and I know that's a really abbreviated story. And just to give some context to everyone as well, we're recording this at the beginning of September, which
Mm,
is the beginning of the month, which is Suicide Awareness Month.
mm.
And Kary, you don't know this about me, but my father-in-law took his own life 6 years ago, and
Wow.
it completely shattered our
Mm,
family. And this is someone that I looked up to as he would hate that I say this, but I say it often because it illustrates how good of a person he is or was. That he was the closest thing walking this earth to Jesus that I had a representation of.
wow.
Brilliant entrepreneur, brilliant man, the kindest human that you'd ever seen, loved everyone, would walk up to a table at Cracker Barrel and tell people how beautiful they had of a family they had.
Wow.
Um, I mean,
Wow.
just one of those shining examples, but yet struggled with this internal pain
Yeah,
and mental anguish
that's right.
that through stress eventually he succumbed to.
Mm,
But this month is really important because we still struggle with these conversations,
yep.
and especially us as men. And so I put out a video even this morning just talking about, hey, here's some things you can notice: isolation,
Mm,
withdrawal. Like if you have friends that you haven't heard of or heard from a while, if they were withdrawing from other friends and yourself, like those are signs.
yeah.
Isolating, it's the worst thing we can possibly do. And
Mm,
yet, especially us men, we think that we're preserving others our pain by doing it.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and first of all, thanks for sharing that. You said it was your
Father-in-law, my
father-in-law.
wife's father.
Um, Powerful story. I've studied a little bit about Robin Williams, and the reason why he made everyone else laugh is because, he might have, had so much pain inside. But it sounds like your father-in-law was just a massive giver, could probably sense people's need for encouragement because he himself, I mean, that's how he survived, was encouraging others,
Mm.
like you can get your eyes off yourself that way. And he seems like a great guy. But, we're taught with people like David Goggins and others that, you know, I train 95% of my life by myself and, no one's going to be there to help you. Like you can get into that mindset a lot, and I tend to probably gravitate toward that. I do cycling. I cycle a lot by myself, and you can get into this rhythm as a guy where you just don't. open up. And so I think it's a dangerous spot. We do need each other. Scripture talks about that. So it-
Community. It talks
yeah,
about community a lot.
that's right.
And that's why I continue to try and create communities for
Mm,
especially men, because we're not even as kids taught to. It's interesting. I have a boy and three girls.
mm,
Girls are much more natural in community.
yeah,
They have their different nuances, gossip, different drama, stuff of that nature.
sure,
But us boys are far more playful and don't necessarily talk about deeper stuff.
sure.
And it's just kind of innate, and it's creating those bonds over time that we can get in community and talk about faith, marriage, kids, the struggles we have internally,
Yep,
and realizing that, hey, someone else has those same struggles. It's not just me.
that's
Oh,
right.
this is how they got through that. Oh, maybe I could try that.
That's right. Oh, it's powerful. I agree. And David's mighty men in the scriptures. I mean, you do see these pockets of communities where they strengthen themselves in the Lord. And yeah, it's good when you're down to have others that are up. So no, but faith in business scared me though, Josh, for a long time. So I was a pastor, and of course I had people in the church who were business people, but they always intimidated me because I thought, wow, these guys know a whole nother language I don't
Mm.
know. Because your buddy Alec knows my parents, but I grew up as a pastor's kid. I grew up thinking money was very rare and scarce, and probably something you should stay away from because of the slippery slope of what money can do. So, you get into this broke mindset, this poverty mindset, and you feel intimidated by people who are crushing it and are able to create real value. So I had this civil war going inside where, part of me wanted to break free from my Shawshank, which which was my day job, which again, nothing against pastors. I love pastors. I really do, but for me it was claustrophobic. And a lot of my day as a pastor was meetings. And man, I'm a fast mover. I like to make decisions. I like to create. And so like my job now is awesome. I get to help entrepreneurs write, publish, market their books, launch them into the world, turn them into 18 streams of income, protect their IP with blockchain technology. So literally, my clientele right now is a dream. I mean, I got Naveen Jain, billionaire. Like I mean, I'm one level from Elon Musk in terms of like my clientele right now, and it's not for anything I've done. It's truly God's favor. But now I'm in the world with people who are creating hearts out of cells and putting people on different planets, and so it is really a unique, weird place to be.
What was that thing? So I think a lot of people have either an idea, an inclination, like maybe they're a 9 quick start on the Colby, which it
Yeah,
probably seems that you are as well.
I'm an eight.
Um, are you an 8? I'm a 9.
Yeah,
And so I have that heavy inclination towards that entrepreneurship, move fast, make quick decisions, informed, but quick.
yeah.
I'm very decisive. But what was it for you going from that pastor to entrepreneur that was like either the hardest thing or the thing that got you over the hump to make
Mm.
that decision to go on your own?
Man, I had vacillated for years. So I had flirted with being an entrepreneur by books. Okay, so here I am in 2004, and let's just call it 2003. So already in 2003, I'm like, man, this pastor thing is killing me. Like, so what did I do? Did a doctorate. What did I do then? Wrote the first book, the second book, the third book, the fourth book. And here was the lie I kept telling myself, Josh. Well, if God really wants me to be an entrepreneur, the next book is going to go big. And never did.
Mm.
None of my books went big. So so here I am, you know, with this massive desire to go start my own thing, and I'm blaming God. I'm absolutely blaming God. I'm like, well, God, you're the problem. You're not making these books go big. You know, I have three kids, 6, 4, and 2. I got a full-time job. I got health insurance. What am I going to do? Just like step into nothing, and really just becoming victim. And this is not my own, but I love this definition of victim. It's someone who lies in bed, blame, excuses, and denial. And it's someone who says the world happens to me, right? So I got in touch with a guy whose kids I was their youth pastor. His name's Chet Scott. He now coaches Ohio State Buckeye wrestling team. He coaches a lot of the Buckeyes, but anyway, and he just started calling me out big time. Like this was one of these guys who if he thought you were full of crap, he just cuss you out, right? He's just a real tough. I mean, he's David Goggins before David Goggins, really. Okay. So anyway, Chet basically says to me, you know, he just starts coaching me. He says, "I'll coach you for free. I know you can't afford me, so you're a pastor. I'll just coach you." And anyways, starts talking to me about opus. And there's two words in work for Latin. There's labor, where we get labor, which is toil.
Mhm.
And then there's the word opus, which is masterpiece. And so I'm working with Chet, and he says, "Listen, I want you to read this quote." So I read this quote, and it says, "A master in the art of living draws no sharp distinction between work and life, mind and body, education and recreation. They simply pursue their vision of excellence and leave others to determine whether they're working or playing. To themselves, they always appear to be doing both."
That's it.
I was like, dang, you know? And he basically said there should be no divide between your work and your life, your family and your God. You should just be all in. He starts telling me about Saint Irenaeus, the glory of God as a man or woman fully alive. Another quote by this guy, a French general, the most powerful weapon on earth is the human soul on fire. So, like, he starts touching all these things in my heart. And from your Spartan background that before it gets better, it gets worse.
Mhm.
There's a lot of men today who are in what's called chronic pain. What is chronic pain? Dull, behind the scenes, purposeless. And so Chet starts bringing into my life acute pain. And I'm like, that hurts. But he starts calling me out. He's a truth teller. So finally, I write my opus, and anyone can find it if they just go to karyoberbrunner.com/opus. But it literally is my life. O stands for overarching vision. P is purpose. U is unifying strategies. And S is scorecard for significance. And this is Chet's model. So I start mapping out my opus, and pastor's not on the list on purpose. So I posted my pastor's office. Everything I wanted to do in pastor was not on the list. I thought, part of me starting to get a little brave here. So the quick story is that I meet John Maxwell. John's became a friend. He's now hired me, him and his team, as a client to do some stuff with their books. But anyway, back in the day, number one leadership guru in the world, John Maxwell, and I start getting speaking gigs, right? So I get this speaking gig while I'm a pastor, and I get a phone call from Chet at the church office. And he's like, "I want you to step outside." So I'm like, "All right." So I step outside, I'm on the phone. And he said, "I see you on Facebook. You just got back from whatever, traveling and speaking." It's like, "Yeah." He said, "Does your senior pastor know?" I'm like, "Yep, yep." I asked him. He's like, "Is your senior pastor happy with you?" I said, "Oh yeah, he's happy." He said, "Is your wife happy?" "Oh yeah, she's happy." And he's like, "Is God happy?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "I think you're full of blank." And he said, I think you are full of blank. And I think you're scared to step out and do what God's telling you to do. And I think you're playing a big game and you're going and speaking everywhere else. You can't take the ring and stay in the Shire." And then he says,
Mhm.
when you grow a pair, call me back. Boom.
I
So
love it.
so you asked what the moment was, Josh. That was the moment. That was the moment. I'll never forget it. It was May. 2012. And after he hung up the phone, man, I literally felt like I had a vomit because I said my life will never be the same. Like I knew in that moment I was gonna have to have the chat. And so literally within 48 hours, I was in my pastor's office, my senior pastor, telling him I was gonna leave. He's like, "What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "I don't know." So think about 6'42" kids, and you've been flirting with being an entrepreneur for 8 years, writing books, thinking you're gonna hit it. And I just knew I had to start moving. Otherwise, I was gonna live my whole life wondering.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you had, I've been told this before, and it sounds like Chet is that way. I've been told that I'm blunt in a way that makes people want to be better.
Yeah,
And that sounds like Chet to you
that's
is
right.
right. Because you can be blunt to be blunt. And there's been times in my life where I
Sure.
overswing the pendulum that I was too blunt and I hurt people's feelings.
Right.
And you got to find that middle ground where it's like, no, your interests are my interests. So I'm going to be blunt because I care.
That's it. He calls it searing truth. He says that most people talk with anesthesia because they don't want to hurt somebody. So he essentially speaks without anesthesia, and it's true.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you've written how many books now?
I'm on my 14th.
You're on your 14th. For someone that's just starting, maybe they have a book in their mind.
Yeah.
And you talked a little bit about flow earlier.
Yeah.
How does one get into flow with writing? Because you're right, everyone has a job. They're not starting out as an author, like
Right.
that's not their opus, at least at this point. But they have this God calling or God whisper in their head. I write this,
Yep.
and they don't know where to start. They don't know how to get into flow. What are your suggestions in that regard?
Yeah. Couple things. One is Simon Sinek said it, but it start with why. So what I do, it sounds silly, but it works. Is it's a little exercise I teach my writers because I mean I might be on my 14th book, but I've actually published 1,100 people. So that's actually my bigger joy is seeing somebody else
Hmm.
achieve their dream. So I have people write a letter called here's what I call the exercise: fictitious follower, imaginary impact. Okay, so it goes something like this: Dear Josh, you don't know me, but I read your book and it changed my life. Let me tell you how. And like you would literally write out the letter. You don't even know who this person is. And then what you do is you basically take that letter and you put it right in front of your laptop. And every time you start saying, well, I stink as a writer, or, who's going to read this? Or, what am I even doing? Or, all of a sudden you're going to realize, you know what? It's not about me. Because a lot of times people, I mean, you will get shamed and so bad. I got shamed by so many people. Who do you think you are to write a book? Why do you think anyone's going to read it? And like, and then you have to go and be creative. Come on now. Like, so what you have to do is you have to realize, I have a cup here, right? Smoothie King, boom. But if this cup had a cure to cancer, would I be like, well, Josh, I know you have cancer, but I don't really want to give this to you because you might think I'm cocky, or you might think I'm being wrong motives. Maybe I'm trying to make myself look good, give you a cure to cancer. No, like your book is actually going to cure someone. And so I always write from the perspective of Josh, your former stuck self. So this is for nonfiction books, but like my guess is that Josh could write a kick butt book about someone who found out that their father-in-law committed suicide.
Hmm.
Like, oh my gosh, you made it through. You knew what you needed at that time. You knew what you wish you would have heard. You somehow got out of it. We call that a framework. Okay, a framework is a solution broken down into simple steps. And so nonfiction books are really a solution to a problem built around a framework. You might say, what is EOS? It's a framework.
Hmm.
EOS is literally a framework. Like we live in frameworks. Brushing your teeth is a framework. Even eating Pop-Tarts. I don't eat Pop-Tarts, but I'm telling you, Josh, they put instructions on it. It says tear package. Put in, it really does. I'm not even put in toaster, eat. Okay. So like everything in life, parenting, devotions, working out is a framework. It's a solution broken down into simple steps. And so a nonfiction book, that's what it is. Now, can you make it pop? Can you make it parallel? Absolutely sticky, sure. Um, but these are just thoughts. I mean, what also gets you into flow is a deadline.
Hmm.
How many times have you heard somebody, oh, I've been working on a book, how long? 10 years. Okay, come on. The reason why they're not getting into flow is because a flow trigger is urgency. So that there's a law out there that says that a job's complexity grows until it fills the time that it needs to be completed. So why do college students crush it the night before? They blow off the class the whole semester and then they have a paper. Well, as humans, they actually leaked their power the whole semester because in their subconscious they were thinking about it. What if they gave themselves a deadline where they could have crushed it a lot sooner, this type of thing.
Yeah. What I love about your letter
Mm.
is I've given this exercise to people before, not that exercise, but a similar one where I have asked them to write their own obituary.
Yes.
And it was an exercise that was given to me when I was in a leadership course.
Wow.
And I've now utilized it with people that I coach because it really gets people to focus on what do you want said about you at your end of days? Because we don't know when that's going to be.
That's right. Oh,
So it could be today, it could be
oh yeah.
30 years from now, but like, what's the legacy that you want to leave? And so it really puts that in front of your face to start acting in accordance
I love it.
with that letter.
I mean, you nailed it. I heard in the last week the Columbus Blue Jackets, maybe you heard this story, but he and his brother-in-law were out riding their bicycles
Oh yeah, such a sad story.
at 8 at night the day before the guy was going to get married, and the other guy's wife was pregnant and now they're gone, so I mean, you're right. We don't know. Like today could be my last day. So my opus really, in a way, is that obituary. It's
Yeah.
it's that document I wrote that tells exactly what I want said.
So you built this relationship with Maxwell, who's written hundreds
Overall,
of books,
yeah,
over 100. I've read the vast majority of them.
yeah,
My two favorite are 21 Laws
yeah. I like that.
and Leadership Gold.
Yeah, those are
Those are
great.
my two favorite ones. But from all your interactions with him, from the book writing to his leadership style, and I do believe you said past tense was the leadership. I still think he's the pinnacle of leadership teaching. I don't know. There's
He's
others that have caught up really
Yeah,
well, like Patrick Lencioni is a very big thought leader in that. But
yeah.
the lasting impact that
Oh yeah.
Maxwell's had.
John's leading nations. Yeah.
Yes. Like what are some of the things in your mind that stand out about his leadership to you and the impact that he's leaving on the world?
I'll tell you what's interesting about John. John can make you feel like $1 million and like you're the only person in the room. Like I've seen him do this so many times. He'll be doing a large Q&A and someone will ask a question, like somebody said, let's say John was teaching about somebody blessing him early in his ministry. This is a true story. And he talked about being in front of this one guy who like literally blessed him, okay, and commissioned him. And then during Q&A, um, you get this woman from another country and she's asking the question. She says, I don't have anyone in my country who would bless me and commission me. Will you commission me, John? Now, listen, if you're a leader, you're scrambling, dude, because I'm telling you, time is money. And you're like, well, crud, there's 5,000 people here. And if I bless this woman, that's the rest of my decade. Like everyone's going to come up to me and be like, I want it. I want it, you know? But here's what John does. John is so good. John's like, you know what? My friend Andy Stanley says something. Do for one wish you what you wish you could do for everybody. And he said, listen, folks, right now, I'm going to ask this woman to come up, but it's only for her. So if you ask me to do this, I'm not going to do it. This is just for her. And I'm like, dang, like, you know what I'm saying? And then he brings her up, and in front of everyone, he just like commissions her and her country for leadership. And I'm just sitting there like literally taking mental notes because how would you have handled that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how I would have handled. I probably would have been like, um, maybe, or talk to me after, or like, crap, I'm caught now. What if people, you know? But he just grabbed that nugget that his friend had said and did it. And I mean, everyone cheered and cried, and it was amazing.
That is amazing. That is really cool. So you've also gotten to spend a lot of time with Dan Sullivan as strategic coach.
Yes.
And
I got to tell a
another,
funny story about that.
all right, let's do it first, but then I'll ask the question.
I asked Dan back in 2021. I was thinking of this whole IP blockchain company thing. And I had lacked the belief that I could do it, and I had lacked the resources. Like I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew is Dan kept talking about IP, and I thought blockchain could be a solution. So I basically talked to Dan on a break some one time in Chicago or whatever, and I said, "Hey Dan, can I share an idea that I have about this?" He's like, "Yeah, write an impact filter." Which, by the way, if your crowd doesn't know about impact filters, so good. It's a free tool. Just Google impact filter Dan Sullivan, and it's a tool that basically before Dan meets with you, he makes you fill out. And literally, Josh, when I get a unsolicited request, literally I have a Loom video that says, "Thanks for your request. Please watch this video." And it's an impact filter. And I say, "My coach makes me do one. I want you to fill one out if you'd like to meet with me." I know I'm going on side story, but this is a leadership tip right here, right? Because time's money, and you don't know this stranger. You don't know if this is going to be helpful or not helpful, and you can't say yes to everybody. So I sent him that little video, 2-minute video, tells him how to do an impact filter. Link below. Guess how many people fill it out?
Very few.
Very few, maybe 10%, because it takes 30 minutes. You know, it takes 30
Mhm.
minutes to get impact filter. But here's the problem: most people don't know why they want to meet with you.
They just want to be around you.
100%. Like even Jesus was like, you know, walking along and someone's like, Jesus just straight up asked the dude for 38 years, do you want to be healed? The guy never answers the question. Like, go back to the scripture. He doesn't answer the question, you know? So like most people don't even know what they want. So finally, anyway, the impact filter story is super quick. The 10% that do fill it out, guess what? 8% of those, or 80% of those people I can't even help. They're asking for something that, you know, my friend can do or somebody else can do, or it isn't my specialty. So then I refer them on in a nice way, you know, and then finally the people who do get to me, I can really help them. And then we have a breakthrough transformational session because they know what they want, I know what they need, and I can meet it. But long story short, I write the impact filter for Dan, right? So he says, yeah, I'll meet with you. So he meets with me, and he hears me talk about the blockchain thing, and he says, I've heard enough. I've heard enough." And he says, I'm going to respond back with the video to you after I have a little bit of time to think." So about 2 weeks later, I get this video from Dan, and it was harsh, dude. It was like another chat video. Okay. And it was Dan telling me the 7 reasons why he would not partner with me. And he just goes into detail, like 7 reasons. He's like, you don't this, you know? And he said, "I don't want to ever talk about this again. Unless until you join my free zone level." Now, he wasn't saying like I'm not going to talk to you until you upgrade to my 50K program. But that's how much this 50K program is. But it had nothing to do with upgrading. It had to do with my idea was not refined. I did not have the belief. And I was asking someone to bet on me when I wasn't willing to bet on me, which is what
Yeah.
a lot of people do this. A lot of people do this. Hey Josh, can you work with me? I can't afford you, but blah blah blah. It comes across nice, but people don't believe in themselves. So I'll tell you what I did. My wife heard me play the video because she was like listening in the other room, and she's like, "Dang, that was like a really harsh video." She's like, "Are you ever going to talk to Dan Sullivan again?" And I've told Dan this, by the way. He just chuckles. Um, and I said, "Kelly, that video was gold." I said, "That video was so good." I said, "I'm going to take those 7 steps and I'm going to make them every single one of my action items." And so just to come full circle, in January, in front of like Dan's highest clients, he asked me to, come up and teach this to his clients now. So, I mean, the point is that like this is the story of my life. The story of my life is like massive failure, massive unbelief, God's favor, dig deep, lean into the pain, and then you just keep leveling up.
Well, and that's how you've gotten to where you've gotten. Most people, when they receive feedback like that, shut down. Be
Oh
like,
yeah,
who the heck is this guy?
right,
He doesn't see what I have. He must not get the vision,
right.
whatever it may be. And then they get into their own ego and not
Yeah.
accept that there actually may be some things there that they
Oh
could
yeah,
pluck away to make it even better.
yeah,
So, and then the leaning into the pain piece, people are not, that's actually where I'll give Goggins credit on
yeah.
that, is like he has mastered not only his own pain, but
Yes,
also teaching others how to master their own pain and lean into that pain and
100%.
understanding that there's so much left in that cookie jar,
100%.
and making sure that you can continue to push yourself because God gave it to us to be able to push through. So most people lean away from the pain instead of leaning into the pain, and that's why they're not achieving what you're achieving or what others are achieving.
So true. I mean, 48 hours ago, Josh, I was doing a 10-hour, 200-mile ride on a bicycle. Okay. Now, why would I do that? Because it's massively hard. Okay. So here's my double century. Okay.
Oh
And
man.
okay. And it took 9 hours and 50 minutes. Okay. So we're cooking at a 20-mile-an-hour pace for 200 miles. Now, why am I doing that? I have no idea. But all I know is it's massively tough. It took training. You're bonding with guys. But when you step off that thing, you're like, you know what? If I can do that, I can do anything. I can
Anything.
I can do the next thing. So in life, man, I have gotten a massive ability to accept failure. Um, Lord help me be humble every single day because oh my gosh, there's mess ups all every day, all day. But yeah, man, like I just feel that you're right. Like some people's definition of making it through life is comfortable, you know? What do you want to do? I want to get there safely. I want to have peace. I want to be comfortable. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know actually I do know a lot about you. You and I are different. You and I are saying like, where's the war? Let's go.
That's right. Make it hard, because I know that every time I've done something hard, I've learned something from it. I may not have won, but I learned.
Yeah.
And anytime that I've been forced into something hard, or where, I was in a depth of pain or a depths of despair, climbing my way out and showing that I can do that and not only rebuild myself, but rebuild empire, person, whatever it may
Absolutely.
be, it makes you that much stronger and that much more equipped to help the previous version of yourself.
Mm. Man, I got so many stories about that. I know you do too. Like really quick. All right. So I'm about ready to launch a book based on instant IP. Guess what the name of that company was 2 months ago? Easy IP. Okay. So the company was called Easy IP. I open up my email. This is in July. And it says from my lawyer, you better take a deep breath. You just got sued from the Netherlands. And I'm like, what are you talking about, the Netherlands? He said it's a multi-billion-dollar company. And even though nobody caught it, even the United States government, you're using easy IP and they want to sue you. And I'm like dude, I mean, just being real, you're like, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
All the wind gets taken out of your sail, kick in the gut, nuts,
everything. I
whatever.
mean,
Yeah.
everything. You're just like, I mean, I'm not going to cuss here, but it's like, you're just like, what the heck, you know? So you just got to deal with it. I mean, I know we're not being political, but like Don, Donald Trump got shot and he stands up and says, fight. Like, I'm not making a commentary on anybody pro or con, but I'm just saying, like, leaders are not ruined in pain, they're revealed, you know?
Yes.
And we have to prepare for these moments. The letter, the gunshot, the person who's like, hey, do you really believe in the scripture? What are you, an idiot? Like every day, we have to be massively prepared. That's why I know you have a physical stamina because, like, you're preparing your mind. Long story short, I'm like, look, we can rebrand, we can pay them royalties for the rest of our life, or we can get sued. I'm like, let's rebrand. It's instant IP. Let's roll, cost me like 10K to buy new everything. And anyway, but the point is this, like, that's my life. That's your life. That's everybody's
Yeah.
life.
It's everyone's. Everyone's going to go through pain. It just depends on the severity and when.
That's
And
right.
so it's leaning in or leaning away and trying to live that comfortable life. But as you lean towards a comfortable life, you end up creating more pain for yourself. You just don't realize it.
That's true. And I mean, I look at scripture. One of my favorite guys is Caleb. Caleb's old, you know, and he still believed God was gonna give him the promised land. And when they're like, "All right, it's time," he said, "Go give me the mountain with the giants in it. Let's roll." Like these are the people that I want to be like that. I don't want to be like David, who's just bored on the roof, like looking at porn, you
Yeah.
know, because he doesn't have an adventure. So my thing is any moment I can be an idiot any day, all day, but I'd rather like be in an adventure that's taken everything out of me.
Adventure is such a key word. I love that. We're running out of time. So you've referenced blockchain a couple different
Yeah,
times.
yeah, yeah.
And I know there's at least one person, because I know like a tiny amount. So I know there's at least one person that goes, what the heck is blockchain?
Yeah.
And then I'll ask you more of a question about the IP side.
Yeah. So we live in a world right now where fake news, fake media, you can't trust anything. So trust tests right now are the lowest they've ever been. We don't know if we're watching AI. We don't know if somebody really said some trust is completely jacked. So along comes blockchain. Blockchain is what's called a trustless technology, which means that you don't have to have trust to use it because here's the basic concept. We run our world with ledgers. Okay. Ledgers, money in, money out. Your receipt. You've had 10 receipts probably today. Starbucks, your gym membership, whatever, like receipts, ledger, ledger, ledger. Well, along comes blockchain that basically says, look, we're not going to have private ledger. We're going to have the whole world be able to see the ledger. It's going to be not only that, it's on every device. So every phone, every computer, every tablet has access to everything that goes on. Okay. Not only that, not only do you have access to it, it's immutable. We use that characteristic to talk about God. God is unchanging. Well, with blockchain, there's essentially a block of information that's created, and then the next block, and then the next block, and then the next block. And these blocks are distributed on every computer all at once simultaneously. So if you say, oh, hold on, I want to go 3 blocks back and change something, you can't because every computer in the world would basically, you'd have to hack 51% of the computers in the world to change any block of information. So now all of a sudden, I'm getting into blockchain, not for crypto purposes, but I'm thinking, I'm a publisher. I've had my IP stolen. Books are intellectual property. Dan Sullivan talks about IP 24/7. IP, by the way, intellectual property, is according to the S&P 500, the 500 most valuable brands in the US. In 1975, out of all the 500 companies, the assets that were IP was 17%. So think about that. 1975, I was born in 76. 17% of the S&P 500 was intangible assets or IP. Guess what happens with the internet? 2020, we're now at 90%. So that tells me that my Apple phone, 90% of the value is not in the parts and pieces, it's in the intellectual property. It's in the home screen, it's in the rounded, it's in the camera, like 90%. And now in 2024, it's 96. 96% of the S&P 500 is in IP. Okay. So I want everyone to realize right here, like actually Josh's company, now, where's your value? It's actually in your intellectual property.
Mhm.
It's your unique, and here's what most people say. Most people say, I don't have IP. In fact, I met a guy at one of Dan's workshops. He's an animation guy. And I'm sitting next to him and I'm like, hey, you hear Dan talking about IP? Do you have any IP? He's like, oh, no, 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 no. He's like, Lego's a client, they have IP. Disney's a client, they have IP. And I say, whoa, you don't have any IP? He's like, no. I said, can I ask you a few questions? And then I just begin to ask him a few questions like, your pricing model. Do you think anybody else has that in the, in your industry, the way that you do your pricing? No. What about when somebody hires on as a new employee? Do you have unique processes for that? 100%. Okay, what about like your clients and how you keep track of their needs and their unique service plans? Is that unique? Yeah, 100%. Like I just went through and asked him 10 questions. And then I said, let me see your website. I saw his website tagline. And I said, dude, you have IP everywhere. He's like, I guess I do. So intellectual property is really property, but most people don't get it because they can't see it. Okay. But like, look at this pen. This is IP. Okay. This is 100%. My toilet paper I use this morning's IP. Do you know why? Because when you tear it, it's not a straight line. It's a curve.
Yeah, it's
It's a
perforated. Yeah.
yeah, and they curved it. I don't know what my wife got, but this is one toilet paper that has like, it's not a straight line. It's like a curve. Like that's IP. Everything's IP. So what people realize is, well, gee, IP is expensive. The average patent takes 3 years and 30K. The average
Mm.
trademark, the average trademark with a lawyer takes 14 months, 3K. Okay. And I'm like, dude, that's way too long. It's way too long. And I said, you know what? What if we could tap into blockchain? And what if we could literally protect our ideas instantly? And I just started going down this path because I thought, I don't know a lot, but I know that it's possible. I just don't know how to do it. And so literally, Josh, we now have a process where you go from smartphone to smart contracts with the press of a button. So you could literally be hanging out with Alec and being like, hey, we should do this new thing. Boom, 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 boom. And all you do is you take a picture, log into the app, boom. That now becomes a smart contract, which creates an immutable timestamp. All intellectual property is based on timing. This is why I don't have the golden arches, because I wasn't there first. So by creating a digital timestamp that is a smart contract that's on everyone's devices across the planet, or we can hide it to create it as a trade secret and only open up the contents in a court of law, that now basically gets your foot in the door and allows you to jump in line before a patent for about 97 bucks.
That's amazing. That is flipping amazing. And all right, I know we only got 5 minutes, but here's where my mind's going, Kary.
Yeah.
Why don't we vote this way,
What
utilizing blockchain?
we absolutely could vote on blockchain 100%. You could log in, you could require people to have what's called digital wallets. I mean, we could. The truth is, you're gonna get me to share all my politics. You just had
It's
you
all
just
right.
had
I have that effect on people.
no, no, you're right. You just had a major person from a large political party literally say our strategy is to get as many illegal immigrants in the country as possible and then get them the right to vote without any validation or verification. I mean, this isn't even like a secret. This is her now on an interview saying this is our strategy. So we are at war with a much bigger force than a political party.
Yeah,
Let's
I
put it that
agree. And we don't have to dive deep down there, but
way. Yeah.
this has been because of the little amount that I know on blockchain
Yeah.
and what you just described, I'm sitting there going, that's you can't cheat that.
Yeah.
There's no there like Florida, I think has the best system because everyone can look up, who they voted for, double check
Yeah.
online that it went in. But still there's that trust factor there. Be like, okay, I see online that it registered that I voted for this person, but do I
Yeah.
know that that actually counted for that person? Like you're
Yeah.
still going to think about that versus blockchain. It's seems seamless to me based on the little that I know.
There's a book on Amazon when I started to study blockchain, and it was literally called The Truth Machine. It's like, dang. But that's what we are at war with right now. We are at war with truth. You don't know who on the other end of the internet is real, who you're talking to is real. And so, yeah, blockchain is this unique, really quick, blockchain is not crypto. So crypto runs on blockchain. That's important because sometimes when people hear all the negative stuff about their crypto, they're like, oh, that's the blockchain too. Let's just throw it all together. No, crypto needs blockchain to work, but blockchain is actually the railroads. So there's really quick, a cool use case. Two, actually. Chipotle had contamination years ago, and they're like, oh my gosh, where is this getting contaminated? I don't know, but it's causing everyone to get sick all across our restaurants. It took them like 8 months to find out it was an Australian beef farm. If they literally would have had all their vendors just simply pop in their ingredients when they picked them up on the blockchain, they would have found out in 8 seconds.
Hmm.
Because everyone is literally just saying, and they would have gone right back and said, when did that contamination start? Boom, that's the farm location. Blockchain is being used for fair trade coffee, for chocolate. You can find where things originated. You can release, there's one city that's releasing asphalt repair by simply giving the ability for phones to track on their GPS. It verifies that they're actually a taxpayer. Boom, they hit a button and the asphalt truck is dispatched and they fill it, all based upon blockchain technology.
That's amazing. We're gonna have to do this again because I have a lot more questions. I know we could have a lot more impact, but I always end with this question,
Yeah.
and perhaps we've already divulged, and this could be anywhere across the board on topic we've talked about today or not. But what's an unpopular belief that you hold to be true that you think others mostly disagree with?
Mm. What's the most damaging thing in the life of a child? The unlived life of the parent. Carl Jung, not my own, but it's a quote that ripped me apart and said, look, abuse, abandonment, alcoholism, that's not the most damaging thing for a kid. It's the kid who watches their parent hate their life and live disengaged and say, give me a six pack, let me veg out on the couch so I can go back to work. Veg, short for vegetable. Let me be brain dead so I can go back and do the thing that I hate.
You know what's fascinating about that is A, it's true,
Mm.
and B, I posted that quote once one time on social media, and you wouldn't believe the offense some people took to it. I mean,
Wow.
I should say you
Yeah,
you probably do believe
I
the
do.
offense that,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'm shocked that I love it that you knew about that quote. That's awesome. Very few
Yeah, no,
people.
because I think part of my verbiage that I even have on my Instagram is helping you achieve your unlived life. And
Oh,
it's one of those things that resonates so deeply with me because as people see what I've built now and the
yeah.
property that I have and all this, I'm like, no, I'm still striving for my unlived life, even though you think that I'm living it. No, I'm
Yeah.
living a great life. That being said,
You
I'm
got
digging
so
as
much
deep
more.
as possible to
Yeah.
figure out all the gifts God gave me and like how far they go so that I can help others and give that back in service to the world.
So good.
So good. Where can people follow you, reach out to you if they want to use Instant IP? What's the best methods to get a hold of you?
Yeah. InstantIP.today. My name, KaryOberbrunner.com, or my publishing company, IgnitingSouls.com.
Awesome. Everybody, as always, share this episode far and wide. If you got, no, let me replace the word. I know you got a lot from this information, this conversation today. Drop Kary a note and let him know what you learned. Every guest appreciates understanding like what resonated with you, because that's maybe a message they need to continue to repeat more often. So please do that for Kary. Leave a note for me as well. We'd love to share it. Remember, the good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.
This is Sparta!